Okay, I will tell you a little more about what I have been doing, so I can share with you the things that might be more interesting for you. Okay, I have been in education more than 35 years. I have been working in a university, and then I moved to an elementary school, so I moved from the biggest one to almost the smallest one. And that was a very interesting experience, because when I was working in the university, I saw some mistakes that we did as educators, and it was more difficult to reorient the people. And when I went to elementary school, I saw that all the things that we were doing as teachers, as principals, as everything, had a very powerful impact and a very direct impact. So it was very interesting to do that things. And since 7 years ago, I work by myself as a consultant and as a trainer. I work with schools as well as with some companies. I train people in teaching abilities as well as some human development abilities. So right now I work here with Universidad Carolina. I help them with the high school program, the open high school program, and I have been helping here for I think 5 years as well. And I also help at Secretaría de Educación, the Minister of Education, and I have some schools. I have some projects from new schools that want to start, as well as some schools that want to change some procedures or some systems that they are not so happy with. So right now I go from here to there, so I know different schools. So that's why I wanted to share you, because I have a presentation here. I told Lori that I was a principal in an elementary school, so I can share with you how do we work in a private school as well as in a public school, elementary school. I designed a program to receive foreign students there at the school, so I can share you that experience as well. And also I had to deal a lot with parents. I think that's the huge challenge we have in elementary school. So those 3 things I can share with you, but if you have something else that I can share, I will let them know. The huge difference between private schools and public schools is that public schools focus mainly on Spanish subjects. Okay, they have been starting learning English a few years ago, but they have 1 hour in the best situations. Okay, in the private schools, almost all the private schools, half of the time they have English subjects, and the other half of the day they have Spanish subjects. The same Spanish subjects as the public schools. Okay, some of it has very different ways of working in public schools. Some of them just focus on language arts. Some of them focus on science and reading and other subjects. But mainly the basic difference is that private schools work half of the day in English and half in Spanish. Okay, so that's a challenge, because our education ministry asks private schools the same results in Spanish as public schools. So we need to work harder and push students a little bit harder, so they can accomplish all the objectives and all the goals they are expected in the program. Private and public schools all use the same program, basic program, the one that is guided by Secretaría de Educación, okay? But private schools can do some extra activities. All of us have language in Spanish, math, science, social, English 1 hour, physical education and arts. But physical education and arts are more theoretical than practical. So in some schools we fight against those programs because if we are giving them physical education, we need to let them learn to do some physical movements or understand their body or take health recommendations, whatever. And also in arts, in the program, the professional program is very theoretical. And some private schools want to do really, or painting, or have some music classes as well, okay? So, and also the schedule is longer in the private schools, and public schools go only 5 hours, but private schools go almost 8 hours. There is, yes, SEP.
Secretaría de Educación Pública.
Yes. The educational ministry. Yes. Okay. So the methodology is also a little bit different. The program, the official program, they say that it's focused on competencies, but it really is not focused on competencies. It's focused on knowledge. So the Spanish program is more focused on knowledge, concepts and repeating the information. But English, I think we have that focus on skills, on learning really to speak, to listen, to write, to use the language as a communication tool, okay? But also in some private schools, they teach English as a second language, so they try to translate. They speak English and then translate to Spanish, but there are a few schools that use the immersion program, that really teachers talk to them in English all day, and they need to learn to think as well in English. So those are mainly the differences. What I have learned as a principal is that we need to work as a team, parents, students, and teachers. We cannot go against each other, and sometimes we go against each other because parents feel that teachers go against their child, and it's very difficult for teachers sometimes to have parents to come to school and to be really a team. And you said something that's a situation that is happening for a few years. Diana told that fathers and mothers are working, so child are abandoned. They are, if they have resources, they are in charge of the maid or somebody that is working at the house. So I have seen as a principal that many parents are absent. So it causes many problems because parents feel guilty because they are not with students. So when the teacher calls them because we are having a situation with students, they fight against the teacher because the teacher is not doing his job, and teacher feels that parents are not doing his job because they are not at home. So instead of making a team, we are fighting each other. So that's a very complex situation we have here in Mexico. I think it's a general situation that we have. It's very difficult because years ago, mothers were at home, they were in charge of their child, and they were helping them with the homeworks and what was going on with students. For example, in the private school I work, parents sent students to as many extra activities as they could, so they didn't have the problem to what to do with them because they need to go home and nobody was in charge of them. So if we have football and art and music and whatever, they schedule them in what as much as activities as they could. So they pick up students at 7 or 8 in the evening and go home. So we have seen that, and what I have seen in all the schools that I have been helping, this is a general situation. Parents and in one side because they need to have busy kids, but in another situation because they want their kids to do as many things as they can to feel that they are
taken care of.
Yes, and they have different abilities.
Yeah.
How we deal with parents, and that's my personal experience as a principal. I was 9 years principal, so each year I learned a lot and I improved and I made some huge differences between one meeting and the way that I handle parent situation and the next year, because I think it's a continuous learning experience dealing with parents. And I can tell you that my huge challenge as a principal was with parents, not with students. With students, it was very easy. They were very easy to deal with them. Even if they made a mistake, they suggested their own punishment, and it was very easy to them. But the huge challenge is always parents. And what I have seen is that huge difference is that maybe in our when we were students, parents respected a lot of teachers said. And right now, as all the society has been changed and parents and fathers and mothers are working and everything has changed, parents not always respect what teachers say. They argue, they ask, and they want to feel that they are doing the best part. So again, my huge challenge was with parents, not with students. But very quickly, at the end of the 10 years that I was working there, we started the school year with a parents meeting. In that meeting, we told the parents all the regulations and all the things that we were going to work with. It was very important because if we don't say them what the regulations are, they will argue in the school year that they didn't tell me that, and so you cannot do it. Okay? So in the first meeting at the beginning of the school year, we presented all the teachers. They knew the teacher before their children start working with the teachers, and we explained how we were going to work during the school year. Regulations and information about activities and everything. So then each trimester we try to have a meeting with the parents. This one is what I told you, that we gave grades in the meeting so we can have the parents there. We have a system that we can publish the grades and they can check it by internet, but we decide not to do that until 3 or 4 days after the meeting because they were very anxious to know the grades. So we gave the grades in the meeting so we can have them in the meeting. And we try to, at the end, we try to give some kind of conference about important things related to the education of their kids. Because we saw that new generation of parents, sometimes they didn't know how to be parents, as we never knew how to be parents.
Right.
We were learning
But
at the same time.
they worry about
Yes.
it.
So, but we try to give some important things. For example, in a minute we talk to them about the importance of being checking the using of the computers or the cell phones, because we saw that some kids, they were very little and they were free to check the computers. So, for example, that was one of the things that we talked to them, or even we talked to them about discipline, positive discipline methodology, because we also saw that young parents wanted to be friends, not to be parents. So that was a very important thing we saw with parents. So we tried to tell them that it is important to be friends, but not stop being parents. So those were some of the things that we talked to them in the semester. And we have a general meeting, and then they went with the teacher of the classroom, and the teacher might give some specific information about that group, okay? Maybe personal things that they saw, maybe some academic situations that they were seeing. And then we have a final meeting at the end of the school year, where it was more like a show, okay? We gave prizes, we recognized average students and everything. So that's one part. But we have another program to follow up some students that might need special follow-up. For example, those that have some behavioral situations or those that have some academic situations. We try to have a personal interview with each parent at least once in a year, but with the students that we saw that they need more attention, we have personal interviews during the school year. In these special interviews, the teacher need to have like the written information about the students' follow-up, okay? That one. So when they have the interview with the parent, they need to give specific information about what they have seen with the other students. If they had a special situation, they talk about the parent and they make some agreement with the parent. We are going to do this, and we recommend to you parents to do that at home. And then they have some other interviews to follow up those commitments. Because we saw that if we didn't have the written commitments, parents should take only the information that they want to hear about their students. So we need to have the written information, and parents take one copy of the written information. It was very helpful because we can follow up the interviews, and we use the last sheet that we have written and we have signed by the parent, so we can see, okay, our commitment was to do this and this and this, and we ask you to do this and this and this. Have you done that? Because we have seen these situations with the kids. And we saw different situations with the parents as well, with the teachers. I need to be I need to follow up my teachers' commitment as well. They gave me as a principal the copy of the interviews, so I can write down what was the special situation with the students. And I need to be very attentive to talk with the teachers if they have been doing the commitments they told parents that they do. Because sometimes parents didn't do the commitments, but sometimes teachers didn't follow the commitments. So my job, I have an English coordinator and a Spanish coordinator. If the situation was in Spanish or in English, the coordinator helped me to follow up with the teachers if they were doing the commitments, because it's easy not to follow up the situation. Same thing that you told. This microadministration really teach teachers to depend on the they get more dependent on coordinators and principals as well. I have seen that because my coordinators check, for example, the exams and the way they write all the questions. So they stop trying to do their best in the exams because somebody else was going to check that. So I agree with you. It's a very difficult how to deal with this, because if you supervise too much, they get comfort and as somebody else is going to check my work. So if I forget to talk to parents, somebody's going to remember me that I should go, or somebody else is going to go because I don't like to call parents. Nobody wants to call parents because, yes, I agree with you. Parents don't like to listen that their kids are in trouble. Even if they are struggling and you want to help them, they don't want to know that their kids are struggling. So we use what we did on the private school with the foreign students. We have seen that as it was a bilingual school, some foreign students went to the school, but we saw that it was very difficult for them to adapt because some schools know that all the students know each other since they were little, so sometimes it's very difficult for a new student to adapt to that school. So
if I can add like a little bit to the experience, I was in a public elementary school, and then I had the opportunity to enter a private school for middle school, but in elementary it was like, as it was said, like 1 hour of English every week, and that's it. So I knew how to count and how to say the ABC, and that's it.
I am, you are his.
Yeah, that's it. So then I got to middle school, and there was like this huge program of science class and English class, and every month you had to read a book and make a project of that book in English. So, and everybody knew each other for like 10 plus years. So I really wasn't like a foreign student, but I felt like that.
A foreign student,
yeah.
Yes,
So
you were from the neighborhood.
yes.
yeah, so like I didn't knew anybody, but everyone else like have been friends from 6-10 years. So I can relate to that story.
You saw your picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you were a foreign student, even for the school. Even if you were part of the same city, you were foreign for that school. So we saw that situation with many students. So I decided to design a program to integrate those students that came in a different grade, because I saw what you told that they were not integrated, they were alone, they didn't understand the school culture and the basic activities. So what I did is, first, principal always had an interview with the new parents. That was a must. But when I knew that they were coming from a different country or different state, we need to do something additional. There are two important things with foreign students. The integration, even if they speak the language, and the second is when they come from a different country, that maybe they don't speak Spanish in this case, okay? So I asked the parents the information they can give me about the students, so I can imagine how he or she was. Because we name like a godfather or godmother inside the classroom, so he or she can be in charge of the new student. And it worked very nicely. So First of all, before the school year began, we made an activity, a welcome activity for all the new students. So, but we invited some students, some actual students from the same grades, and we chose students that were open, that they were friendly, so they can really bond with the new student or help them to adapt to the school. And we made a student prayer inside the classroom. We have all the list of the students. We made a prayer. We asked the teacher to choose a student that was friendly, and maybe if he can speak the language, it was better. But if sometimes we have Korean students that they didn't speak English or Spanish, but we have a student that were open and were friendly and don't feel frightened because they didn't speak the language. So it was a very helpful activity because that student need to be with the new student for a week, and he was in charge of that student. So he needs to be, but not in the like a parent situation, like a friend. So yes, I will teach you where do you need to leave your school bag, how do we make lines, and how we go outside for recess, and where is the cafeteria, and where are the bathrooms, and everything. And I invite you, if I play football, I will invite you to play football with me. So it was a very useful activity because if not, some students didn't even notice that there was a new student inside the class. Okay? So sometimes if we have the first years, maybe we have a few students, but after we did this activity, we had several students that want to be in charge of the new students. So it was very good. So sometimes we have the per student 1 or 2 days, sometimes a week, depending on how many students want to have the new student to adapt. And it was easier for the new student not to feel alone and with less
segregated.
Yes, yes. That was one part of the situation. If the new student didn't speak both languages, in this case English or Spanish, maybe he came from the States and didn't speak Spanish, we allow things inside the classroom in Spanish, so he can start learning single words like this: mesa, vaso, silla, cuaderno. So we learn some things, so he can start learning single words. And then we made like a basic dictionary with the main sentences he needs to learn. For example, I need to go to the bathroom in Spanish. Puedo ir al baño, me siento mal, I feel
Sick.
yes, I can see. So they can start having a basic sentence dictionary, so they can start interacting with the students with the main information. And then we had a Spanish teacher that take students outside the classroom. If they speak English, they took them during the English class, so they don't feel so much of their own language activities. And they took outside and they started teaching Spanish outside, one by one, or maybe if we had some other students that were in the same situation, she might have 2 or 3 students, so she started teaching them all the basic sentences in Spanish. But we always recommended parents to have the language tutor out after school, because we saw that if students learn the language easier, it was easier for them to adapt to the school. But this is a two-dimensional problem: the integration and the people accepting him, and the language. So we have to work both of them. Spanish class, we Columbus, everything. So when they were improving with the language, they will start catching more words or more phrases because they have the frame about the situation. And also we help them with the assessment. The first period, just orally we ask them what do you learn about history, but mainly just very few ideas, and it was correct. On the second period, maybe we will ask them to tell us about the questions that were part of the exam, but they didn't have to answer them the way that the regular students were doing. They just, for example, can you tell me what problems caused the independence situation? And what they understand, they will share that with the teacher, and that was correct. On the third period, maybe if we saw that he was improving with the language, we have a teacher that was translating the exam and helping him to answer it. Even if the test was in Spanish, he can answer it in English. And the English teacher would help the Spanish teacher to translate and to see if he was answering the correct situation. For the fourth period, maybe he can answer the test, trying to do it by themselves. But there was also a teacher that if he has some question but didn't understand one of the questions, maybe she or he will go. And maybe for the fifth period, the last one, he will be or she will be able to answer the test himself. Some students were able to do it during the first year. Some students need a second year to be independent in the language to do that. So we try to help them with the language issue. It's easier if the parents give him or the students have language tutoring outside class. It's easier because language is really English. And we have interviews with the parents to keep them informed about the improvement of the students, so they can. Okay, what you talk about bringing parents is amazing. I was an elementary principal, and it was a challenge to have parents, even in elementary. I need to give them the grades in person and not letting them to know them by the system or anything, because if I didn't give the grades, they didn't go to the meetings, even in elementary. So if you go higher levels, it's a challenging situation.